Hey everybody, Brother Nick here. I'm the Vocation Director with the Franciscan Friars Conventual, here to answer the top 5 questions I get about discernment and becoming a friar. Number 1, what are the requirements of becoming a friar? 3 big things to think about. 1, you have to be a guy. 2, you have to be a practicing Catholic. 3, you have to be between the ages of 18 and 40. You also shouldn't be married. You shouldn't have any secret kids stashed around the country, stuff like that. Second question, what is the process of applying to become a friar? If I want to join you all, how do I go about doing that? You can kind of think about the process in 3 steps. You should be picking up by now that 3s are going to be a big thing here. Step number 1 is to just initiate contact with me or just with a friar near you. Step 2 is scheduling a visit to a friary. We have things like official discernment retreats and come and see weekends, but I think a better experience, a more authentic experience, is to just do an individual visit to just one of our regular friaries for an extended weekend or even a whole week, just to get a sense for the rhythm of the life and how things really happen. You know, when you go to an official come and see weekend at a religious order, it's kind of like going to an open house or an admissions day at a university. You know that it's kind of a dog and pony show. There's a lot that's being orchestrated. There's a lot of theater that's happening, versus if you know someone who goes to that university and you like do an overnight in his dorm, follow him to a couple classes. That's a better experience of, well, what is this life on this campus really like? Similar thing with religious life. Better to have a real, genuine experience of going to an actual friary, seeing how the life is actually lived. And then step 3 is actually going through the formal process of applying. There's an application, there's letters of recommendation from people, you write kind of a mini version of your own autobiography, you do psychological testing, there's lots of interviews, there's medical requirements, all sorts of stuff. It's a lot, but we have to make sure you're not crazy. Third big question we get are, what are the stages of formation? Again, this is another series of 3. We have 3 main phases of how it is you get formed as a friar. So once you've gone through that application process and hopefully you've been admitted, what happens? The first phase is called postulancy. It means like you're thinking about it. It's really about you checking us out in a little bit more intentional way and us also checking you out. That's 1 year where you're living sort of a modified version of Franciscan life. You're learning about the community, you're learning about St. Francis and other Franciscan saints. You're learning how to live in community with a group of other guys, which can be difficult if you haven't done it. Phase 2, which is novitiate. It's a year and a day officially, kind of like an extended retreat experience, living Franciscan life in a really intense way. Lots of people will refer to novitiate as the boot camp of religious life. There's another video about the novitiate on this website. I'm sure you'll check it out when you're done watching this. At the beginning of that novitiate year is when you get your habit, but you'll get a cord that doesn't have any knots in it because you haven't made any vows. And then at the end of that novitiate year, you profess what are called temporary vows. So you get a new cord that has the 3 knots in it. Those vows expire, they're temporary, so you take them for a period of at least 3 years. Normally guys do them for 4 years. Phase 3 of formation, once you're done the novitiate, you enter post-novitiate. We kind of gave up on the cleverness of the names. This varies from person to person. It might be that you're on the brotherhood path, or it might be that you're on the priesthood path. The gist of post-novitiate formation is getting the education and the ministerial experience you need to actually live life out in the world as a friar. That can be anywhere from 3 to really even 7 years, depending upon when you joined, how much education you had, whether you're becoming a brother or a priest, what do you want to do ministerially. At the end of that process, you do what's called solemn vows. So it's making those vows permanent and a lifelong commitment, and you're a full-fledged member of the community. So the full process of becoming a friar, between making initial contact all the way to professing solemn vows, is probably a good 8 to 10 years. Fourth big question I get are about, well, what do we do as friars? What are our ministries? We've responded to the needs of where we are. In the Catholic Church in America, those needs kind of fall into 3 big categories. So if you're thinking about the ministries that the friars do, it's helpful to think in those 3 categories. Category 1 is parochial or parish-based stuff. Guys who are pastors, guys who are assisting in parishes. Category 2 is education. We teach and staff and run 2 high schools. We have a bunch of campus ministries. We have grade schools and things that are attached to a bunch of our parishes. We have guys committed to higher studies, getting their doctorate, doing further research. Third big category is what I'll call miscellaneous or other. Any job that you could have out in the real world is pretty much a job you could have as a friar. If you want to do something that isn't about being a parish priest and isn't about in some way being involved with education, as long as it's legal and moral, you can do it. And finally, the last big question I get in discernment scenarios is, there's a whole bunch of Franciscan groups. What's really the difference between all of those? So again, this is another 3 situation. Within the male world of Franciscans, there's really 3 main groups. There's us, the conventuals, there's the Capuchins, and there's the OFMs. If you think about religious life, there really are 3 big aspects or dimensions of the life: the prayer piece, the ministry piece, and there's living in community. I think the way the 3 branches of the Franciscans have evolved is that each branch kind of has a focus or an emphasis on one of those aspects. Not that we don't do the other 2, it's just that where our focuses differs. So the Capuchins tend to have a focus and an emphasis on prayer. They're almost the more monastic version of Franciscans. The OFMs tend to have a focus on their ministry, really having creative ministries, dedicating a lot of time to that. The conventuals have tended to put our focus and our emphasis on the community life. Again, not that we don't pray, obviously we do, and not that we don't do ministry, obviously we do, but the focus, the emphasis has always been on the value of the fraternal life as an end in and of itself. So those are the top 5 questions I get being a vocation director. Maybe you have some more. Feel free to add those questions in the comments below. Shoot me an email. It's somewhere on the screen. Give me a phone call or come back to this website as I answer more of your questions about what it is to be a Franciscan and how you become one.